right, we are back with Thompson to Clark and the beginning of the baseball season, essentially. Spring training is here. Everybody is 0-0.
It's going to be like that for a while.
But
everybody always says, what was the big whole the whole thing last year during the WBC, the phrase that we love meaninless games. And that carries over for pretty much any baseball fan when it comes to spring training. We love meaningless games. Just give us games. It doesn't matter. Exactly. Inter squad, I don't really care.
Exactly. But the thing is optimism is here, right? It's optimism. Everybody is like, hey, we're not 7 games under 500. We're not 10 games back. We actually can talk about things like, oh, what if we made the playoffs? So that is the best part about spring training. The Giants signed an old friend.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to get your take on this because we haven't talked about this specifically. But
was it this guy? They signed this guy? Bring this guy back? Darrell Evans? No. Not that old.
This man is 37 years old, which surprised me because I always think of him as just like a young kid, right? He's got that young person's personality. But the Kung Fu Panda himself, Pablo Sandoval, is signed to a minor league roster deal. He is a non-roster invitee to spring training. He hit a 6-run home run in some crazy league.
The Dubai League. Yeah. When I saw that whole thing, I was like, I don't think I'm going to watch any of those games.
And so I was having a Twitter conversation with an old friend. Now, this is when Twitter was cool, when you could actually meet up with people based on, tweeting about the Giants. And we kind of went back and forth. And I kind of asked, like, is this because, is this supposed to throw us off the scent? Signing Pablo, is it for show? Is it for go? Like, what is the whole thing here? And she thought it was like, it was because they couldn't sign some people, so they're reminding people of the good old days or something. And I definitely get that. I think there's some of that, but at the same time, I do find it pretty harmless, and I don't expect him to make the team, but I'm all for an older, more mature Pablo Sandoval in spring with a bunch of players who have a similar background as his. And not that he necessarily needs to be a mentor, but he kind of brings something that they haven't experienced being on a World Series baseball team.
Yeah, it's one of those signings where, and to me, it kind of, started when Farhan came in and then hired Kapler, and things, kind of curtailed and went a little bit backwards last year, to the point where Kapler was fired. So I really do think that Farhan has one ear to the ground, listening to the fans, listening to the chatter. Look, we like our nostalgia. We're Giants fans. We like our history. We like our lore. Only sick people like us could like Candlestick. I mean, that's that's how much we like the old stuff and we enjoy it. So bringing Pablo back is one of those things where, also Kung Fu Panda 4. I just saw an ad for that on my.
It's coming
on my Echo show. Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming, so it's
in like a couple weeks, I think.
So we got the Kung Fu Panda back. Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming out, but it's one of those things where it's not hurting anything. He's not really taking a roster spot, because the Giants can easily just sign some. I mean, if they sign Chapman, the writing would be on the wall for Panda. This is kind of a showcase for Panda in a way. No other organization is going to showcase Panda like we're going to. So, if he's looking for a job somewhere else on a coaching staff, as a 26th man on a roster somewhere on a team that's trying to gain a little bit of excitement, the Giants are the team that could absolutely do this. I mean, look, Matt Williams is back. Bob Melvin is back. Will Clark, Buster Posey, those
Mhm.
guys are going to be in camp this year. They're going to show up. Pat Burrell's back. I mean, you look at it. I think Farhan went the other way and said, "Look, I understand, and there are Giants, ex-Giants players out there who could help the Giants roster, who could help on the coaching staff, who could help in spring training." So he's giving the fans what they want, but then you just get complaints from Giants fans. It's like, but again, we're talking about Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But
Not real.
not real Giants fans. These are, oh, okay, now that we got Pablo, now we're not getting Chapman. I mean, you got to be out of your mind. I think that way.
Well, I mean, there's a good Giants Twitter can be good, but I think the people who are, the people who Tim Kawakami ends up blocking constantly, like those people are kind of crazy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you mentioned something. You mentioned Candlestick Park and how you can only be a crazy Giants fan to like that park.
yeah.
I'm currently reading a book by author Lincoln Mitchell called The Giants and Their City, and it covers 1976 through 1992. So
Okay,
basically,
nice.
when I was born
This is
until
great.
1992, and the story behind the Giants almost going to Toronto is crazy. And it's not a story that I'm very familiar with. Like I know the nuts and bolts, but that story is crazy. So, before the season starts, I want to finish this book. I like reading baseball books kind of during baseball season. And there's
Yeah.
another book that I am currently reading. Gosh, what is it? It is I'll find it here. I don't know if you bought this one as well, but I think I told my dad to buy this one. But it is on Mike Murphy's 6 decades with the Giants from the Stick to the
Oh,
Cove.
right.
So I want to read both of those books basically by the time the baseball season starts, or into baseball season. But just the crazy you mentioned the crazy, it just reminded me of like that. The reason why we do this podcast has a lot to do with growing up and being a Giants fan and going through the heartbreak of being a Giants fan. Like, because you take that time frame, 76 to 92, they would have had one pennant winning team and and one no, so they would have had one World Series team and they lost, and then one NLCS team and they lost. So like not a whole lot of success. And then post 92, it does get a lot better, but just to go back through that time frame is like our childhood. And it just reminded me of, this is why we do the podcast, is for spring training. It's
Yeah.
because 1986, you got to like these kids, and nothing but the 20-year-old infield that they were putting out there. And so it's just those things that remind me why spring training is important, why you sort of have this fresh slate, why, if you're a Dodgers fan, you're probably ecstatic about what's going on. Having, I saw these articles on Yamamoto throwing his first live bullpen. I was like, really? Like, that's what we
Uh,
care about?
How about Shohei's home run count in batting practice? That's another ongoing
Is he
Dodger
wearing the elbow
player.
brace? Does he wear an
I
elbow brace?
I believe so, yeah. And they're 10 he had 10 swings and hit 6 home runs. Oh, all right, it's batting practice.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy's a phenom. Yeah, he's going to hit home runs in batting practice.
So Pablo, he's gonna get a few ABs here and there. He'll be fun to watch when they actually play games. So I'm sure he's gonna be signing a ton of autographs. I'm sure when Buster comes by camp and some of the other players from those teams come by, it's gonna be a nice thing and a whole lot of fun for the team. But ultimately, you know, I think if there's an opportunity for him to make somebody's roster, maybe the A's who want the Giants' old cheap vets, then they'll let him go and do that. But he did say he would play in AAA, which I kind of find very interesting. He's going to go to
Yeah.
Sacramento and play baseball. Like, this dude signed a many $1 million contract with the Boston Red Sox. He's going to go scrap it up in AAA.
I mean, I think he wants to play so much that he's willing to kind of extend his looks from other teams maybe to spring training, give himself a couple more weeks. You know how that goes. He'll probably, if he ends up going to AAA and say the Giants are like, hey, yeah, you know, we're not putting you on the 40 man, but we'll assign you to the minors. Then, you know, maybe 3, 4 weeks into it, he says, okay, I haven't gotten any other interest, so I'm going to call it a career at this point. But I think Sacramento opens here in Reno. Opening day is like April 2nd, but it's the 1 week we're gone on spring break. So not gonna I tried to talk to the wife. I said, you know, here's the schedule. Opening day, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We could day we both work from home. We could play hooky. We could just, you know, show up at
Yeah.
the ballpark, catch a game. And she's like, it's spring break. We're not here. I was like, a damper.
Wait, are you gonna get a chance to see Drew Jones? Is he gonna be
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna
Yeah,
be
so there
amazing.
a lot of players are going to be coming through here this year. So yeah, I'm going to try to get to more Aces games this year, especially the night. They do play some Saturday because it's so darn hot here during the summer. So their Saturday games are at 6 p.m. So those are nice because the sun's starting to go down. You get a nice part of the stadium. Um, you know, grab a nice cold beer, stand up, and just kind of walk around the ballpark. And over the left field bleachers, it's really cool. Not bleachers. There's a left field wall at Aces Ballpark. So when you're walking around the ballpark, you can stand over the wall and just look down and just watch the game from up there. And there's a railing you could put your beer. And then behind you is where the train runs through Reno. So that's really oh look, thumbs up. Um, behind you when you're standing up there is where the train runs through Reno. So you're watching a game, train comes through. If you ever get a chance, if anybody's up here, Giants fans, and you're in the Reno area, go to a game at Aces Ballpark, check out the stadium and everything. It's a lot of fun. One of the most fun AAA minor league ballparks I've ever been to.
Yeah, we gotta look at that schedule and see if there's
Yeah,
any
yeah,
Sacramento Reno games on the
for
weekend
sure.
that Crystal and I can just drive up to for get you guys out and hang out.
Absolutely,
That'll be
man.
fun.
Yeah.
Just a couple of business notes. You reminded me. We're doing this on a Tuesday.
Mhm.
Obviously, yesterday was the holiday. And next week we're gonna go on Tuesday again because I'm out on Monday. And then I think you said the following week you're gonna be out early in the week, so we'll push
Yeah.
to Wednesday. And then you mentioned your spring break week that you were gonna be out the whole week. So I'll
Yeah.
either find someone to do this with, or we'll just take the week off for that. So yeah, it is the show is going to be moving days, but we're still
We're
locked
still
in
punching it
to
in,
doing
man.
them. So
Yeah.
all right,
That
so
so that week I'm off for spring break. Unfortunately, that's like the first real week of the season because the week before that we open on a Thursday in San Diego for 4, and then I'm gone, and that week we are in LA for 3, man.
yep,
So that's going to be a fun week because we'll be near here. Our spring break this year is going to be up near like Tahoe. So we won't be down in the LA area, but I'll be able to watch the games, which will be really nice.
yeah. All right, now we our post Pablo conversation. We're going to chit chat about Keith Law. He had a top 20 prospects for the Giants this year. And there was also news about two of those prospects because two of those prospects were drafted as possible two-way players. And we've been talking about this for a little while, in that Reggie Crawford was probably not going to be much of a two-way prospect. The hitting wasn't there. They want him to focus on pitching. He's hitting 99 coming from the left side. And they made it clear he is going to be solely a pitcher. And last year's top pick, Bryce Eldridge, who was drafted as a possible two-way, Keith Law basically said he's really only got one pitch, though that wasn't going to be sustainable, and they need to focus on the hitting. So he is going to be solely a first baseman. But they are two of the top 5 prospects that the Giants have. Kyle Harrison is still number one, and Keith Law pretty much penciled him in as their number two starter, which is, I think, everything that we've heard. Marco Luciano is also in there. He's going to be their starting shortstop. So, any thoughts on some of these younger players? Because, the whole design, the whole blueprint for this franchise is to have young players to fill out a big deal of your roster, and then you chase some of the big name vets, but you got to have these young players who are cheap, in order for this blueprint to work. So what are your thoughts on Harrison and Luciano and Eldridge and Crawford and I think Carson Wisenhunt rounded out the top five?
Yeah, the top 5 are, that's a good top 5. I'm one of the weirdos who likes the youth movement. I know, there's a lot of people out there that are like, wow, we got to get Blake Snell. We got to get, Blake Snell's nice and all, but you're going to pay a Scott Boras premium for a long contract for Blake Snell coming off of a National League Cy Young award. That's probably the worst thing that could have happened. If you're a GM, that's one of the worst things that could have happened coming out of last season was Blake Snell getting the National League Cy Young Award. Maybe they should have just given it to Logan Webb. See, that's the thing. Giants writers should have all voted for Logan Webb, and then Blake Snell would have been at a lower cost. But I like the youth movement. I'm very excited to see Kyle Harrison as the number 2. Again, it's going to be pitch count. It's going to be innings count. How long are they going to let him go? But he's electric. So it's going to be very exciting. Luciano, that's a tough one because he's such a power bat if he can really, really lift the ball. But the problem is going to be, where do you play him? And I mean, a lot of talk about him taking over at shortstop, but then you have nobody else. There was a big article written that you really don't have anybody else at this point to be his backup. So if the glove fails at shortstop, or the bat fails at shortstop, or if they both fail at shortstop, you're kind of stuck at that point because you really don't have anybody else to plug in.
That article written by Grant Brisbee was so fun, and not because we're creating a problem for Marco Luciano and he hasn't even really started yet, but it is a worry because he has broken down a lot in the minors, and last year's given the opportunity, and it's not like he didn't come up essentially to do much. He was kind of back down and not really playing a lot. So the fact that they're giving him the job, or they want him to win the job out of spring, is kind of nuts to me because of what little we saw with him last year. They didn't even really trust him to play much. And so now we're just turning over the whole captain of the infield to this guy. So that's interesting. But what you said is they don't really have anybody behind him. And right now, the person on the roster who would get some of those reps at shortstop is Thairo Estrada, because Thairo Estrada came up as a shortstop and they moved him to second because he's just defensively a better second baseman. But then that opens up the thing of, okay, so if Thairo moves to short, then who plays second? Yeah. We had that problem last year. Wilmer's getting reps at second base. We're like, what's going on here? So I think that is a thing that they need to figure out. Now, some of the names that were thrown out as far as being the backup, Tyler Fitzgerald, which is a favorite of ours because he's got speed. He's playing some center. He's playing some middle infield. He strikes out a lot. But if he could just make contact and utilize that speed, I think he could find a spot on this roster. Otto Lopez, who they just picked up the other day, that's another possibility. I know he plays some shortstop, but the problem is what you said, in that if Luciano doesn't cut it, they don't have a plan B. There's not a Brandon Crawford playing behind Luciano. And we talked about this before. Like, why isn't Crawford a possibility? Well, you probably have to pay him a lot to sit behind your young guy, and then what if the young guy fails, and then Crawford just slides back in, and he had a terrible season? There's weirdness
Yeah,
around there,
that's not, you want to move forward.
right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if Luciano does not succeed, it's a top prospect who's not able to make the transition, and B, you don't have a plan. You don't have a backup plan, at least as far as we can tell. It's just a bunch of young guys who are more utility players than they are actually shortstops. And I know there's other folks out there. There's Elvis Andrews and who's the other guy who played for the Dodgers last year, I think.
Oh, he actually just signed today. You're thinking of Ahmed Rosario, right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, he actually just signed. I think he just signed about 2 hours after that article came out. He is signing with the Rays.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah.
So that is maybe the biggest question mark on a team that has a few question marks going into camp. To me, that's the biggest one. I think the other ones, and we've been talking about this for the whole summer, which is, what is the rotation going to look like behind Logan Webb, behind Kyle Harrison? Is it going to be Keaton Wynn? Is it going to be Tristan Beck? The guys like that who, we use this as a little bit of a temperature gauge. Who's going to go? Like, if you're going to a game and you see the name on the marquee of 2013 Madison Bumgarner, you're like, oh, I want to go to that game because Mad Bum's going to go 7 or 8, and he's may possibly throw a no-hitter. Logan Webb is the closest to that. If Logan Webb is pitching, the team's going to have a chance to win. But if you see Tristan Beck on the marquee, is that a game where you're like, I want to see what I want to go and watch this game because the Giants have a great chance to win. We don't know that yet with a Keaton Wynn or a Tristan Beck. At some point, maybe we'll know more about, Robbie Ray may be a guy like that down the line. I saw the Alex Cobb near no hitter last year. Which was really fun. And then who's the kid Hicks that they picked up? I mean, I'm sure at least in the beginning you want to see what 104 miles an hour looks like. You're going to want to go to see that game. But really, it is a rotation of a lot of hope and a lot of flexibility, I guess. And I don't like the word flexibility when we're thinking about starting rotation.
Yeah, it's a tough one because when you're talking about Beck and you're talking about Wynn and you're talking about Hicks, you're talking about 3 guys that maybe go like 4 or 5 innings and then you're into the bullpen. They're kicking around the name Sean Jelly as, being a bullpen guy because there's an innings eater. Because
the new Junis.
The new Junis, he can go 3 or 4 innings. Then you're looking at, handing it over to the Rogers brothers and possibly Amir Garrett and Luke Jackson, and then off to Camilo. So that's a lot of the majority of your starting rotation that you're looking at who may not get through 4 or 5 innings. So you have to really look at and say, well, Mason Black, Carson Whisenhunt, guys like that, but they're not on the 40-man. So, but Kai Wei Tang is on the 40-man, I believe.
He's hurt in camp, though, right?
He's hurt, so he's going to get a little bit of a late start. So there's 3 guys right there that are more arms. But as camp goes along here, and as guys start getting designated for assignment from other teams, that's where Farhan kind of shines, the back end of the 40-man. He's going to be grabbing some guys off of the pile who can eat innings early in the season. And Cobb, again, we talked about this last week and we've seen a lot of reports. He's not on the 60-day. He was eligible to go on the 60-day just about a week ago now, and they did not put him on the 60 days. And he said he wants to try to face live hitters by the end of spring training. So there's a chance he only misses like the first maybe 3-4 weeks or so of the season. So there's another arm that you get back. And then Robbie Ray, late July, we don't really know what we're going to get out of Robbie Ray this season. And then he has the opt out if he wants to, go somewhere else at the end of the season. So I mean, there is the capability to have a lot of arms to be able to eat innings early and often. But they're all young, and that's fine. And like you said, would you go to see, go to the ballpark to see Tristan Beck and Keaton Wynn? I mean, I'm a Giants fan, so yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go. I mean, because I want to see what these guys can do. I mean, look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Brendan Pfaadt, I mean, was pitching in the World Series. They had a young rotation other than Zach Gallen, who lost out in the voting to Logan Webb for the Cy Young. So you're talking about Logan Webb and a bunch of young guys, and
Yeah.
look what the Diamondbacks did. But again, they did it with defense and they did it with timely hitting and some power. And the Giants added some power with Soler, and if they can add another glove with Chapman, that helps out on the left side of the infield, like we were just talking about with Luciano. So there's a lot of options still left. Spring training is just that. It is spring training. It is time to see what guys can do at certain positions. And you look at Tyro Estrada last year, turned it around and became an awesome, awesome second baseman. So we have that solid glove at second. You got Lamont Wade Jr. at first. Blake Sable could be a first baseman as well. He's going to be working out there. So yeah, I like the young pitching staff. I like to see this stuff from Keith Law. Who else did we have on that list? Wizenhunt, we just talked about. He's still 23. Where did he pitch? Oh, last year was he in Double-A? He was in Richmond, I believe. And then Reggie Crawford. See, I don't know if we're going to see Reggie Crawford for a while. I don't think Reggie Crawford is a guy we're going to see this year. I could be wrong because, again, last year I didn't think we were going to see half the guys we saw in Matos and Meckler and Luciano and all those guys. I didn't think we'd see them that fast. But
Walker, what about Walker Martin, the youngster, the young infielder with the sweet swing, who was named after Larry Walker?
That's right, man. So that's the thing, is the Giants have spent a lot of draft picks, kind of building up the minor league system. Yeah, it's not tops. It's not the best, but for what the Giants need to do to attract other talent in the offseason, I think a lot of these guys can contribute. And then you also have showcasing them for the trade deadline come July. If you can pick other guys away that have some sort of control for 2 or 3 years, maybe you're not getting rentals, but you're using some of your guys like Carson Wizenhunt and Tristan Beck, maybe, to bundle with Joey Bart. Again, Joey Bart is out of options, so he would have to be on the major league roster. If he's not traded in the spring or early in the season, Giants would have to carry, technically, if they had Sable also, which he does have options, but you'd be carrying like 4 catchers pretty much at that point. But you could trade a guy like Joey Bart and Carson Wizenhunt and grab somebody from another team who has 3 or 4 years of control versus having to worry about free agency and are they going to pick us or the Dodgers, which is pretty much how everything has gone lately. So
Grant McCray, he's number 9. He is 23, so this is kind of a prove it year for him. Guys like Trevor McDonald, same 23, right-handed pitcher. You would hope that he would be close at least to get into the big club this year. As we get to some of the older players that I'm thinking who could help us, Keaton Wynn, obviously. Keaton Wynn is going to be 26 this year, so this is definitely a year for him to prove that he is a big leaguer. Vaughn Brown, also 26, going to be this year. And, he did not have as good of a year last year. And then, that kind of takes us all the way through to 20, who is Wade Meckler, who, he's probably going to be around the team just because they put him on the 40-man. And so he's going to be a guy who they're probably going to bring up and down and give him opportunities to be a bench outfielder, pinch runner, allow him to make some mistakes in the outfield and figure out where he is best suited, and hopefully, because he is a gamer, he's a guy who gets his uniform dirty, easy guy to root for. I hope that he's able to make some make some positive progress on this team this year.
I think my favorite prospect, just for the name, is Maui Ahuna.
Yeah,
That's my guy, man. I want him to go there.
Are we sure he's not in Moana?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's not as big as The Rock, but when you say Maui Ahuna, where do you think he played college?
Yeah, exactly.
You think he played obviously at Hawaii, but he played transferred from Kansas to Tennessee. He played in the South, man.
There you go.
But of course, he was born in, I think, Hilo, Hawaii. So,
have you ever thought about moving to Hawaii? You could watch
many times
Giants games in the early afternoon and just be done with them.
Every time I go to Maui, we're usually there for 10 days. And Maui, I don't know if you've ever been to Maui, but Maui is one of those islands that is it's the country island.
Yeah.
And so, Willie Nelson has a house there. It is the country, man. Just sweeping big, gigantic hillsides and everything. Super chill island. And every time I go there, I just pop on the internet and I look at housing prices, but I'm like, nah, there's no way. I had an uncle. So I have a lot of connections to Maui. My grandmother was born in Lahaina. My dad lived in Eva Beach. His dad was stationed there in the Navy. So my dad lived there for 4 years. And then my uncle lived in Kona for 20 years. So we have a lot of connections to the islands, but I don't know. Someday I'll spend an extended vacation there of 3 or 4 months just to kind of have a good time.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
All right. As far as what we are drinking, I wanted to go first because I did a spin on the T2C and remind people what is in the T2C.
So the T2C is our buddy. We call him our buddy. He has no idea who we are. The Rocks Tequila, Terramana. We do the silver, right? I can't remember what's the Terramana silver. Is it just called Terramana silver?
I forgot.
I think so. But anyway, so it's 2 ounces of that. If you want to lighten it up, it's 1.5 ounces, but I go full 2 ounces. And then I pour that into a glass of Zevia grapefruit, citrus grapefruit, and then a couple of wedges of lime, squeeze that in there, stir it up. And that is the T2C. And it's almost, I say almost T2C season, but it's 44 degrees outside right now. We got snow coming over the mountains. So no, I don't think so. Not quite yet.
Yeah. In a month or so, in a month or two. Okay. So what I did, have you heard of this soda? I saw Super Bowl commercials for it. It's called Poppy.
Yeah, I saw the commercials. Yeah, I heard about it.
So it is
it's a see-through can.
Yeah, because of the little bit of the green, yellow. But it has about 5 grams of sugar, so it's not quite diet soda. But it doesn't have that aspartame or that Zevia taste. So it's a little bit of it's lighter, but it is really good. You have to be okay with those 5 carbs. And so what I did is I found some ginger lime poppy soda, and I thought, oh, I wonder how that would taste with tequila as like a mixer. And then I thought of the T2C, and I was like, okay, I know Brad likes the citrus with the tequila, and this is a ginger lime a flavor of poppy. So I did put a little bit of lime juice in it as well. But yeah, the ginger lime with the Terramana, it's pretty good. It's not quite the same bite as the grapefruit, because the grapefruit does give you that little bit of bite, but still pretty darn good. I wonder if these poppy sodas are actually going to take off or not. I don't imagine so, because imagine trying to break into the soft drink market. Like, that sounds like insanity just because, all the brands that we know of. But I kind of like the idea of sort of I wouldn't call it a diet soda, but it is a light sugar soda. And if you do not like that aspartame or that Zevia taste, you might dig the poppy taste. So that's what I did. I mixed it with some tequila and some lime juice, and that is my drink for the day.
Well, you say that too, trying to break into the market. I mean, they must have had some sort of ridiculous backing to be able to get Super Bowl ads. Because, like
Oh
you said,
yeah,
too, that there were like 2 or 3 that I
yeah,
remember. Um, but yeah, and I'm fine with like lower sugar stuff because we do. I drink Spindrift, which is like a seltzer,
yeah.
but it has
Flavored
like,
seltzer.
yeah, it has like 2 grams of sugar, a
Mm-hmm.
gram of sugar, or something like that. So I like it. Yeah, lower sugar, I'm fine with. Um, and so today I was trying to do. Speaking of Zevia, I thought, you know, right after I got home, I go, oh, I wonder if I have any ginger ale. Zevia ginger ale. Nope, didn't have any of that. The only Zevias we have right now are Dr. Zevia and Vanilla Cola. So they're both
Mm,
caffeinated. Because I was going to take a shot of Evan Williams, throw it in there, mix it up, have a
there you
nice,
go.
big, tall, cool drink. I wasn't going to drink caffeine at this time of night. So I ended up busting out the really nice bottle of Four Roses, the small batch select.
Yep, yep,
Um,
yep.
I think you can get that in the stores you could find it on sale for like around 60, 65. So it's like the top end of what I would pay for bourbon
Mm-hmm.
personally. I don't like to get into the like 70, 80, $90 range. I'm too cheap. Um, but this stuff, oh my gosh, super fantastic. Um, it is crafted from 6 unique bourbons, so it's kind of a Four Roses blend. It's very meaty. It is not your smooth Evan Williams where you sit back and have 2 or 3 of them. You pour this guy and you really just kind of take your time with it. I've got a lot of new jazz vinyls back here. It's over on that side.
Uh-huh.
So I've been busting those out with the Four Roses, and I also have the Old Forester 1920. So I've been sitting and having those, and it's great because you can crack open the vinyl, play the vinyl, get out the liner notes, read about the album from like the 50s and 60s and stuff. So I've been enjoying the bourbons lately. But I got to save up my carb intake
Yeah.
because we'll be in Disneyland in a week and a half. And so I don't go crazy with the food, but the beers are usually really, really good, believe it or not, at Disneyland. So at Disney California Adventure, I like to have at least a beer a day while we're over there riding the rides.
You're gonna get some steps in though.
I will get the steps. Yeah. I haven't gotten a lot of steps lately, but I've been doing a lot of bike, a lot of weights, strength, stuff like that. But I haven't been doing a lot of walking. So I'm a little nervous about that. But I've gotten the legs really strengthened up. So I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, Crystal and I are doing a steps challenge for
Oh,
February.
nice.
In what did we do in January? In January, we did miles walked. You had to
Okay.
actually put it as a walking exercise on your Apple Watch. I beat her by like one was it 1 mile maybe? It was like
Oh, wow.
62.8 miles versus like 61.8
Oh,
miles.
jeez.
So I did get her, but the steps is a little bit different because she is off this week because of the winter break. The
Oh,
kid,
yeah.
because she's in the education, and so she can kind of go out and do a bunch of different walks with the dogs, and I have to work this week, so I'm like trying to figure out how do I catch up, and
So you
so
stand in place and just.
what I do where I actually get steps is if I do like 20 minutes of shadow boxing, I get a decent amount of steps.
Oh, there you go. That's
Yeah.
a good call. Yeah, what I like to do is if I need more movement and I get a help desk call, I'm on the 3rd floor, and we cover the 8th floor all the way down to the 3rd floor. So if I get something on the 7th floor, I go, here we go, stairs.
There
Boom,
you
boom,
go.
boom, boom, boom. Because otherwise I'm not going to get into an elevator if I need
Yeah.
some steps, man.
Yeah,
It
of
ain't gonna
course. There you go. All right, let's end this podcast with Just what are you going to be checking for during spring training? Or do you have a keen eye on any specific thing? What are you interested in learning more about this
I'm
team?
not too worried about the lineup. The lineup is what the lineup is. It's going to be a lot of moving parts there. I am super interested, like we talked about earlier. I am very interested in this starting rotation. Um, just the fact that Bob Melvin today called it a rotation
Mhm.
has me very excited because we haven't had a rotation in a few years. Because he said, he said, I've got Webb and I've got uh, Hicks or no, he said I got Webb, Harrison, Hicks, and after that we got 2 spots and about 4 guys fighting for it. But basically said that uh, Beck and Wynn are kind of locked in at 4 and 5. It's their jobs to lose. But I want to see what the other guys do. I want to see what Wizenhunt and Black and Tang once he's healthy. I want to see what those guys can do in spring.
Mhm.
So I'm really going to be watching the highlights as much as I can, just to kind of see pitch movement and different things from these guys. I think it's been a while since we've had this young of a possible starting pitching staff because again, Kyle Harrison, I mean, all eyes are on him anyways, but then you add in a couple more young guys and a reliever turn starter in Jordan Hicks, and so you look at all those guys together, and you go, man, this is kind of intriguing to see how things go.
Yeah.
How we're always pretty optimistic about stuff, um, because you look at the upside. If all of these guys hit, or 75% of them hit, you've got a really, really nice rotation. So yeah, I think that's for me, it's going to be starting pitching. I'm not, and again, I'm not too worried about the bullpen because I kind of know how that plays out. I failed to mention Ryan Walker earlier, who I'm also really excited about. I'm a big Ryan Walker guy. The movement on his slider is ridiculous if you've never seen it. So yeah, starting pitching, man. I'm excited. And unfortunately, the first game of spring is the Dodgers and Padres in 2 days. So 2 days from today that we're
Wait,
recording.
where are they playing that one?
That one's going to be in Arizona, but since they play overseas,
Right. They're
in
getting a
the
jump
first,
start.
yeah, they're getting a little bit of a start. And our first game is coming up this Saturday at noon. And I can't remember who. Oh, Chicago Cubs against the Cubbies. So yeah.
You know what? I forgot to ask you one question that I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you before we talked about our drinks. What do you think about the Boris 4?
Oh man. Eh, God. I don't even know because I'm all for getting your bag,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's fine with me. Get your bag, man. But I kind of feel like we're going to get into a situation where teams are going to sign, one or all 4 of these 4 guys in April or May. Then you're going to start off with kind of a sour taste in the mouths of the fans. Then if you don't live up to your contract, it's going to be a huge problem.
Mhm.
Now Haniger was a Boris guy for us last year, right?
Good question. I don't even know.
I believe so. And wasn't Jung Hoo Lee? He was also a Boris guy, right?
Yes, I think so.
So and that happened quickly because again, that one had to because of the posting and everything else. Um, but like with the Mitch Haniger thing and the Aaron Judge thing, I almost called him arson. The arson Judge thing, also being a Boris guy. All of that having to deal with the fact that things dragged on. And then once you got your guy, things didn't pan out, but
Right.
Haniger
Right.
got his bag. So I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. I'm a little frustrated with everything right now because these are 4 guys that can make impacts on teams. But again, they got to get their bag. They got to get what they're worth. But other guys, Soler, Jung Hoo Lee, these guys have gotten what they think they're worth. So I'm
Yes.
not sure how much, obviously, a lot of it has to do with the players, because if the player said, I'm fine going to this team for a smaller portion of that, Boris isn't going to stop them.
Right.
And,
Right.
and we know Scott Boris is a guy who doesn't get his players signed to extensions, although Jose Altuve just signed an extension and he's a Boris guy.
Right.
But he wanted to stay in Houston. So really the player drives it. So I don't know how much I really put this on Boris as I do these 4 players that are like, man, I think Scott Boris can get it for us. So let's hold out. Let's see what we can do. But again, it's just gonna end up being bad taste in the fans' mouths, and that's kind of what they're working towards at this point. It's I hate to see it, and I hate to say it, but I think it's just going to kind of turn into that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I am like, how far do they go into the season without being signed? And then if you sign this year and you start slow, the fans are not going to be happy. They're going to be blaming you
No.
for, taking your time and getting into camp. So my hope for those guys is that they are working their rear ends off so that when they do finally sign, they're like ready to go. Though I'm not quite sure about Jordan Montgomery. I'm a little worried about Jordan Montgomery, what
Yeah.
he's doing right now, coming off of that World Series championship. So
Having himself a good time.
yeah,
But that's the thing, because Farhan even said too, like, obviously it's a stalemate, and it's a negotiation tactic. But he said straight up, like, at this point, if we bring somebody else in, somebody else has to go, and we think we're kind of set where we're at. But obviously, I mean, if they sign a Matt Chapman, you move parts around, you make things happen.
yeah.
But and 3 or 4 other GMs have come out and basically said, no, I think we're good where we're at, and we're not going to be spending any more money. So
That seems pretty strategic. Like, I
yeah,
think it's very strategic to do that. But I do wonder, of those teams, like Chicago's been tied to Bellinger the whole time, right? The Giants
right,
and the Blue
yeah,
Jays have been tied to Chapman. And
hmm
so you're kind of saying that, but at the same time, are you alienating those guys and making those guys the bad guys essentially for
right,
what they're doing? And so that's going to be an interesting how those guys feel about, what these teams are doing right now when they're kind of playing hardball a little bit. So that's something to be that I'm very interested in. But as far as my guys, what am I looking for in spring training? I think for one, it's just really Luciano. Like, I'm so invested
yeah,
in what he does and who he's going to be. I think there's less not hope, but I think there's a lot of people who are like, this guy's going to be one of the best players, in the game. And it seems like because of people like Keith Law, like, we're not thinking like that anymore. But I do hope that he's really good, right? Like, you hope
right,
that he is the goods, and that all of those the things that have been written about him in the past are still true, and everything. So I'm hopeful that he does bring the goods. And it's also Harrison. Like, can you imagine being 22 years old and just rising through the ranks, and all of a sudden you're like, you haven't really done anything in the big leagues, but guess what? You're the number 2 starter on the San Francisco Giants.
yeah.
like he's like,
and
what?
and is that due to the fact that they just didn't sign anybody else?
Right.
Because if they would have signed Yamamoto, he'd be number 3. If they would have
Exactly.
signed Yamamoto and Snell at this point, he'd be number 4. So is it undue pressure due to the fact that the other guys didn't get signed or haven't been signed yet? So
Yes.
what goes through his mind? I mean, I'm sure he's a competitive athlete. We've seen the interviews with him. We saw him in his, just super nasty first outing as a Giant last season. The guy's going to take the ball and say, yeah, I'm number 2. You got to take it from me now. So,
Right.
and that's what you want. I mean, you want a nasty, starting rotation, and it all trickles down, which is great for us as fans and the rest of the team, it all trickles down from Logan Webb. I mean, that guy is an ultra competitor. So to have a guy like that as your number one, he is a true, when you talk about true aces of staffs, that's it. I mean, he is the attitude, everything else. He is a staff ace, and we're lucky to have him at this point.
Yeah, he wants it. He wants the ball. He wants to have, he wants to be the guy. So
Yeah,
he's perfect. He's really perfect for what they're trying to do. And you just hope that you get him the opportunity to be the guy as well, and
yeah,
just to succeed in that role, and to get. We don't care about wins that much anymore, but it'd be great to
right.
see him get to 20 wins, even
Oh
though there's
yeah.
a lot of stuff involved in that doesn't have to do with the pitcher, as we have learned. But
Well,
you know,
run support is one of them.
run support is a big deal, and that would be great. Okay, so we're done for this week, but like I said, we'll be back next Tuesday, and the Giants will have some baseball
Hmm.
underneath them, and we'll be
Yeah.
able to talk about it.
We could talk numbers in a week. This is
Yeah.
very exciting. I love numbers.
The one thing, I mentioned Luciano and I mentioned Harrison. All eyes on Jung Hoo Lee.
Oh, yeah, well, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's as a leadoff guy myself, this is like heaven for me, man. Seeing Jung Hoo Lee up there and knowing he's gonna lead off every single night, I'm geeked. I can't even tell you. It's been a long time since I've bought like a jersey of a player who's currently playing. That's one, because 51 looks sexy on the back of a jersey, man. So getting a Jung Hoo Lee jersey, man, that might be the way to go. So,
There we go. All right. We are done here, but we'll be back next Tuesday for Brad. I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
peace.